Here on Let's Talk Bitcoin, we've spoken a lot about 2.0 protocols, so-called Mastercoin, NXT, Counterparty, BitShares, ProtoShares, tree chains, side chains. I'm sure I'm missing a few others here. I want to go through Ethereum, of course. Ethereum still has not done their fundraiser at the time we're recording this yet, but they have had several actual releases, and there's real stuff to work on right now. So I think it's worthwhile, even though we don't have any guests on to talk about this, for myself and the other two hosts on Let's Talk Bitcoin, of course, Stephanie Murphy and Andreas Antonopoulos here with me today again.
Hello.
Hey.
To kind of just go through them real quickly and give an update on where everybody is, at least as far as I can tell. My disclaimer, this is just generally true. I invest in cryptocurrency. So if you hear me talking about something, you should basically assume that I have invested in it. And you just should assume that whenever you're listening to any of us talk about this stuff, really, unless anybody has specific disclaimers to the other direction.
I invest in pork belly. So if you hear me talking about bacon, I have multiple interests.
I can't really come up with anything better than that, but I like bacon and cryptocurrency. How about that?
A special interest if I've ever heard one. The earliest project that I guess we touched on was Mastercoin. Way back in August, I did an interview with J.R. Willits about his Mastercoin fundraiser, which was, again, one of the earliest one of these Metacoin protocols, where the idea is that you build on top of Bitcoin, and then on top of that, you build new things, like in the case of Mastercoin, it's new types of assets. And then also you can do betting and contracts for difference and things like that with it. Mastercoin has gone through a kind of long development cycle, and there was a lot of question about how well they were doing, just because they were taking in the Bitcoin space kind of a long time to do it. But they have now had their first release. A couple of weeks ago, a company called MadeSafe, Stephanie, that you interviewed, the CEO of.
Yeah, David Irvine.
Yeah, David Irvine successfully raised somewhere between $6 and $8 million, depending on what exchange rate you're using, in Mastercoin and Bitcoin in about 5 hours, actually. In what was supposed to be a 4-week-long fundraiser. And this was, again, the MadeSafe project is a distributed computing network. Basically, it's like Bitcoin, except that instead of downloading the blockchain, you are giving over part of your computational power and part of your storage capacity on your computer. Or if you don't want to do that, you can just have some of these tokens and you can buy it with that instead of giving some of your own. They were able to successfully raise those funds, but it happened in such a chaotic and in a totally fast way. There was a lot of backlash against it. And there were a lot of people who were looking at this and saying, oh, this was just a trick to increase the value of Mastercoin. And from the outside, I think it really looked a lot like that. But I think that the thing that struck me throughout this entire process with Mastercoin and the MadeSafe thing is that they thought that they were going to fail. They thought that they weren't going to raise over the course of 4 weeks. They weren't going to sell out. And so they put all of these things in place to make it so people would be incentivized or more likely to buy sooner rather than later. And turns out the demand completely overwhelmed the supply. And so it's also a funny thing, because when you're talking about crypto raises, right? When you're talking about crypto sales or crowd sales or whatever you want to call them, part of it is about raising the money. But the other part of it is about trying to get it out to as many people in the community as possible, because those people then have an interest in paying attention to your project, where if they didn't have some of your token, then they might not. And so it's caused this weird sort of tension. But with the MadeSafe project, and a lot of people are having kind of bad feelings about it. But overall, the project was very successful, and I think it sets an interesting precedent moving forward, that maybe these things will either succeed or fail so fast that there's no middle ground, that good ideas, because there's all of this pent up demand for implementation of good ideas, will be jumped on, pounced on, and filled up very quickly. And then on the other side, you have ideas that aren't as appealing to whatever that particular demographic wants, and maybe they won't get any funds at all because, again, it's so specific. So Mastercoin has kind of some interesting challenges. They're going through also kind of an internal purge, it seems like. I know that they've let a number of people go, or are intending to let a number of people go. But again, Mastercoin, first one out the gate, I think that's really important. They had a successful fund. They had a successful crowd sale. They managed to deliver the tokens. Just in general, I think it was a positive launch that had a lot of hiccups in it, and that hopefully they learned a lot of lessons from. Mastercoin does have some problems. They raised a lot of money at the beginning. And so because they raised money, they've had the problem of having to spend it well. And depending on who you ask, that has gone to varying degrees of good or bad. They have a role-based bounty system, which is really interesting. And again, they've done bounties in a way that they haven't felt like was particularly successful, but they've spent a lot of money. So again, I think that there's this push and pull between projects that fund versus projects that don't. And projects that fund have more resources. They have the ability to execute, but at the same time, they have the responsibility of spending the money appropriately. And sometimes you don't, whether it's intentional or not. So I think that's a problem that Mastercoin still really has to deal with. And it looks like they're trying to, like I said, they're shaking up their team internally and looking at different incentive structures. So I think it's positive direction there. The wallet tools that they have out, they have a couple of different wallets that now make it so that you can send Mastercoin fairly easily, a couple of web wallets, 2 web wallets, and a desktop wallet. I have not been impressed with really any of them. Of the various tools that are actually out, I've found the tools that are on the Mastercoin side more difficult to use, just generally less intuitive than, like I said, the other available options. But again, this is very early in the process. I'm still waiting to see what tools look like later on. So what do you guys think about Mastercoin? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have to say I agree with you about the ease of use of the wallets or whatever. It's difficult to figure out for me. And I'm not like a super newbie.
Yeah, the multi-wallet thing, it's all about the metaphors, right? So I think that, again, like people are really trying different things and seeing what kind of, how does it make sense to have these different types of tokens? Because right now there are just a few types of tokens, but eventually there are going to be thousands of types of tokens or hundreds of thousands of types of tokens. And these solutions kind of need to scale. There's
a comparison currencies with internets in the 1990s. Well, I think if you look at it that way, metacoins and protocol layers above Bitcoin that are implemented by things like Mastercoin or counterparty Ethereum, etc., are really like the World Wide Web. It's a completely new layer on top of the system. If you remember, the web came out at a time when even the basic function of email was still so new to people and people weren't sure what to make of it. And the very first browsers were so horrible and clunky. A glimpse of the possibility for those who had the vision to see it. So when I first opened, NCSA Mosaic, it was not anything like the experience of even a year or two later. It really took until Netscape 2.0 to really see the power of the web on the internet. So if Bitcoin is still in the early 90s of the internet, I would say metacoins are at the NCSA Mosaic level. Just because it's clunky doesn't mean that you can't see through. If you have the vision, you can see through that and see the immense possibility that is enabled by layering on top of the blockchain security model to implement completely new levels of features. And then, of course, to me, I think even more so, Ethereum with the idea of a generalized blockchain platform with Turing-complete language that can enable a myriad of applications to be custom written for that language. I think that is a tremendous innovation. And I'm not saying that Ethereum will be it, but what Ethereum does will happen one way or another, perhaps by Ethereum, perhaps by a clone of Ethereum, or perhaps by something that comes even later. But again, it gives you a glimpse into just what is possible, and it proves conclusively the underlying idea that Bitcoin is not just a currency. This is not just money for the internet. The people who have the vision to look beyond the currency as a speculative instrument, to see this as a platform, and then all of the applications that could be built using that platform and inspire a generation of developers, of programmers, of designers, of entrepreneurs who will eventually not just innovate as they already are doing, but wrap these things into easier to use interfaces and easier to use packages until everybody can use them and we can bring that power to everyone.
Absolutely. I think that you're totally right there. This is the very, very early start of all of these things. And, the reason why the tools are so painfully, just not usable in general terms is because we haven't identified yet the things that will make them more usable. We haven't identified yet the problems. I mean, now we're starting to. Nobody knew that a 10-minute long block time was going to be a problem for these metacoins until in practice we saw that when you actually are waiting there 10 minutes, sometimes it actually takes 40 minutes for a block to tick in the Bitcoin network. And there really isn't too much there's nothing that you could do about it. It's just kind of the way this system works. So because of that, suddenly there's a reason to use a faster blockchain, whereas before there isn't. But we don't know that until the first applications are built on top. So you brought up Ethereum. I was going to go about these in the order which they kind of have been proposed or launched or whatever, but let's jump right to that. I would like to talk about that. Ethereum is such a fascinating project to me. They've done a great job of basically looking around the community, and not just the Bitcoin community, but like the cryptography community, the financial services community, and picking out really smart people and then getting them excited about Ethereum and starting working on it before they're even getting paid. From that standpoint, Ethereum has been successful in a way that I've never seen a cryptocurrency project be successful. I'm super curious what you guys think about it.
Well, the other way to say that it's been successful is to say that it's had a lot of hype. And I think you could definitely say that about Ethereum.
Well, how do you define hype, though? I mean, I would consider it hype if there wasn't a product, but there actually is a product that they're putting out new versions of. It's an alpha. But I mean, there are projects that launched 3 months before that still haven't reached that point. So that's the thing, is that, yeah, there's hype, but it seems like there's some meat there too.
Okay, so there's an alpha client, and, please, I'm not trying to rag on Ethereum. I wish them all the success in the world, okay? And I'm curious to see how it shakes out. But okay, they've got an alpha client, but they're at conferences saying that they want to re-engineer society and completely change the world.
Well, but isn't that what Andreas and I just were talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, like, we didn't use those words, but...
Well, so here, you have to separate again the design pattern or the idea from the current implementation of that idea. The design pattern of a Turing-complete platform based on the blockchain for negotiating contracts is brilliant, genius on a level almost equivalent to Satoshi's in terms of taking existing technologies and just pushing them to a whole other level. And I think Vitalik is one of the most brilliant people ever for building it and designing it and coming up with the idea it is. Now, the instance of Ethereum as implemented now is very early stage code, just like NCSA Mosaic. And the organization around Ethereum is a whole other issue altogether. But it doesn't matter, because the idea of a Turing-complete blockchain platform survives Ethereum the instance and Ethereum the organization and even Ethereum the brand, and can be re-implemented by someone else. Someone can fork it and build another Turing-complete blockchain platform today. And I expect we're going to see that too. Just like we saw altcoins, we're going to see alt contracts.
Yeah, I've already heard people talking about that who have different criticisms of Ethereum and so forth. But Andreas, since you really seem to have caught the vision, I've had this explained to me a couple of times, but show me the problems that Ethereum solves and paint a picture to me of how it solves them.
Absolutely. The fundamental problem that Ethereum solves is this. If you have a new application you want to create that can benefit from a decentralized blockchain consensus mechanism, today you have to build both the application and the consensus blockchain network to support it. The problem with that is that in order to get enough hashing power or enough consensus security behind that new blockchain, you have to either recruit people to the idea, application, or philosophy of what you're trying to build, or you have to ride on top of something that already exists and then take all of the limitations that brings with it. So the two choices before Ethereum were build an alt chain, in which case, because this alt chain is dedicated to your new application, getting sufficient security in your consensus mechanism required recruiting enough people to your application. And that's very difficult to do. Or riding on top of something like Bitcoin, but then accepting all of the limitations it has for general purpose applications. Ethereum solves one problem, and that is you no longer have to make that choice. You get to have a general purpose blockchain consensus mechanism that you can build different applications on top with very few limitations. And anyone who participates in that contributes to the shared consensus power, consensus security mechanism of everyone mining that blockchain without having to recruit people to their specific application. So for example, let's say you decide you want to do a new altcoin that does distribution of basic income every round, so that you're implementing something like the Swiss basic income guarantee system from a political and economic and monetary philosophy within your currency. Now, previously, you could either build that on top of Bitcoin with all the limitations that incurs, which by definition has to be a conservative and slow-moving platform, or you build an altchain, but you can only persuade people to mine if they like the Swiss basic income redistribution model. So you have to sell them into your politics in order to get them to secure your network. Well, Ethereum solves that by saying, well, you can build that on top of Ethereum and people will mine not because they agree with the politics of your currency, but because they want to mine blockchain consensus platforms that can support any application. So it solves that basic conundrum. And that opens the door for every single point of view and expression of that point of view to get out of the gate with a consensus level of security that's unimpeachable and unassailable.
Everything you're saying, I get it. It sounds good. I guess the thing that freaks me out is the way that I often hear it talked about, which is that this is going to change everything. Now we're going to have a completely transparent society where everything is on the blockchain and everything is managed through Ethereum.
Well, that's great. I mean, hey, set a vision. And then if you fail to meet it and your vision is enormous, then you still achieve a hell of a lot. You don't have to buy the whole vision to see that this offers a significant new platform for building consensus applications.
Yeah.
Whether you believe that consensus applications are the future of all applications, or that the ability to build consensus applications easily fundamentally changes society, just doesn't change the fact that consensus applications are useful. The argument you're making, Stephanie, is an argument that I think a lot of people make when they first hear of Bitcoin and they hear us talking about fundamentally changing financial services. And sometimes you just have to sell them on the makes shopping easier. Well,
I think they have a right to be skeptical about it. I mean, it's okay
Absolutely.
to ask questions. And I'm not like, I don't need it dumbed down for me to like accept it. It's just that when I hear somebody
and that's not what I'm saying. I'm simply saying you don't have to accept the full extreme vision, which is utopian by definition, is very ideological and utopian, in order to see the basic utility.
And I mean, again, their community who's actually working on the stuff is big enough that they have kind of like inside jokes unto themselves. It's kind of clubby. You know, they have a lot of people who are involved in this project. One thing I noticed from Ethereum people is that they oftentimes have this like smile where it's like, I know what's up and you don't. Like a lot of times when you're talking to someone, have you noticed this, guys?
Sure.
In Bitcoin or Ethereum?
In Ethereum. Sorry if I said Bitcoin.
Well, and okay.
Yeah, well, I would say all of that applies to Bitcoin as far as the rest of the world is concerned.
Too, absolutely. But the point is that with Bitcoin, it doesn't apply to people who understand Bitcoin. With Ethereum, it applies to people who understand Bitcoin, but people who don't necessarily understand Ethereum at the particular level that they're talking about. So
yeah, well, Adam, I think like it's a good thing to bring that up because it's not, again, I don't think we're trying to criticize. It's just like, this is the perspective. This is what somebody sees. And is that a good way to get people comfortable with this revolutionary kind of technology? You know, maybe it's not.
But I don't think that's the point, is my point, is that they haven't started fundraising yet. So right now, their target market, the people that they're trying to keep excited, impressed, and involved are people who are working for free. You know, at the point that they come out with a product, or not even the product, at the point that they come out with their crowd sale that will allow them to vest other people within the community, then I suspect we'll see the marketing shift to something that's more oriented towards people. Right now, I really feel like it's just clubby. You know, I mean, like, and it's not intended as an insult. It's just like, kind of just what it feels like. It feels like these people are all friends and they know each other and they know what's up and they're working on something that they think they're cool. And at the point that it's ready for the rest of us, they will all know how cool it is too. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the vibe I get. I do think that the application is important too. Like, the idea, as Andreas said, I really think that you can separate out the marketing from the innovation. And I'm curious, do you have any concerns about the innovation, or is this entirely on the marketing side?
Most of my concerns are about the marketing and sort of the way it's presented. But of course, it relates to the technology and the innovation, because it's about what does this thing actually do, Yeah. And that remains to be seen. We don't know what it's going to do until it gets to more advanced versions. So I'm keeping a healthy attitude of skepticism about myself.
CryptoKit is the world's first Chrome browser Bitcoin wallet. It's the easiest, fastest Bitcoin wallet payment system. With a simple one-click install, it takes just seconds to get your wallet set up. And because CryptoKit finds the address and payment for you, there's no more fussing around or tab switching. CryptoKit is more than just a wallet. It comes with a preloaded PGP encrypted social network, news feeds from Reddit and Google, and up-to-date charts from exchanges. Finally, CryptoKit Directory allows you to make two-click payments with any of the BitPay merchants. Once you install CryptoKit, you won't need anything else. For more information or to download CryptoKit, visit CryptoKit.com.